Welcome to GameReads. I'm your host, Sean Callahan, and I'm here today with Jeff Hayes. Hey, Jeff.
How's it going, Sean?
Thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Definitely. You know, you are a big name in the industry for your company, Soundbooth Theater. How many books in the game lit RPG arena do you think you've produced at this point?
Oh man, it's gotta be more than 30 by now. I would have to go through and count them all, and also sort of talk about exactly what constitutes game lit and what doesn't, because the lines are getting blurred already. There's a lot of stuff like there's this relatively new genre called harem lit that's been really making a lot of noise in the Amazon market as of late. But the very first audiobook I did in Game Lit was Other Life Dreams, which is also harem. So harem was basically born out of Game Lit and Lit RPG, but now it seems like it's sort of becoming its own thing and kind of dropping the stats a little bit. And sometimes they do have stats, sometimes they don't. It's like, okay, wait, is stats even enough anymore to keep it game lit? Like, it's kind of hard to really talk about. I mean, things are getting crazy right now. So I'm gonna play it safe and say I've done at least 30.
Yeah, that's quite a bit, my friend. You've done a lot of hours in this genre itself, and I'm familiar with the harem lit stuff. Specifically, you recently did Cherry Blossom Girls, that whole series with Harmon Cooper, correct?
Yep. We got the first 2 audiobooks of that series out. Book 3 is already out on Kindle. We haven't started production on that yet, but as soon as Justin is able to fit it into his schedule, he'll start on that. And that series has been very interesting because it's definitely harem, and the story is about a game lit author who gets visited by these supers, but whether or not it's actually game lit is very debatable, because really the only thing that would technically make it game lit is that the super ladies that come to him and team up with him, he's able to plug a USB device into their necks and adjust their stats. So, like, is that game lit? Is it still in the same realm? I mean, and it's about game lit at the same time. So it's like, where do you draw the line here?
Yeah, the lines are definitely blurring, and I think that's the maturation process of the genre. I mean, we're still a new genre here, about a couple years old, really. I mean, if we're pushing 3 years old, we're getting back to the beginnings of the American genre part of it. How long do you think it takes you to produce like an hour's worth of finished product?
I would say our process now, I mean, back when it was just me, it was probably 5 to 6 man hours per hour.
Wow.
But now it's more like 8 to 9, because we have multicast, because we're doing extra. We're doing, it's not just, oh, well, you split the amount of recording time between 2 people. No, the fact that there's 2 people means that there's more interaction, there's more editing that needs to be done to make it sound good between the 2 people, because often, we don't have the opportunity to perform with each other, right? We're not in the room with each other delivering lines in conversation. It's all out of context. In order to make that sound right, that just requires more extra time. There's no way around that.
What I'm hearing is that it's definitely harder to produce an audiobook with multiple narrators.
Yeah, no question. No question. It's why it's not done very often.
This is something that's kind of not really a general standard. It's something that your company started doing because I would think that the genre kind of lends itself to that.
I think that fiction in general is better served when, in audio at least, when you can hear the conversation between characters rather than having the conversation read to you. It's just more immersive. I think it gets what the people are saying across better. in general, as long as your actors are good, as long as your actors are acting appropriately within the genre. So like you don't want cartoon voices in a mystery thriller, right? But you might want cartoon voices in a lit RPG or a game lit, because there's some goofy ass characters that show up in these books, right? So and with fantasy and sci-fi, you know, there's all sorts of like insane creatures and non-human characters that pop up that really helps. It really makes it more entertaining to hear a voice actor try and embody that to the best of their ability. Multiple voice actors really helps with that, because it will actually sound like two people talking to each other, because literally it is two people talking to each other. And then the male female thing, right? Like, so if you have a female character doing all the female voices and a male character doing all the male voices, you just have a better percentage of characters that pop, that actually, you know, sound genuine. So that's why I do it. I mean, I do this work because I like it, and because I'm passionate about sound, and because I want to make it a show. I want to make audiobooks that I would listen to. So that's why I've upped standards, at least for my company, so that it's just a more immersive and enjoyable experience for listeners. You know, like with Cherry Blossom Girls, people really love hearing the interaction between all the actors, and it gives people more to talk about when it comes to the audiobook itself. You know, that's one thing that media really needs, is a reason for people to talk about it, a reason for word of mouth to travel.
And I mean, there is some just innately virality built into something like Cherry Blossom Girls, I think.
He wrote the success of Cherry Blossom Girls into the book. The author that's in the book, his book hits, and then when Cherry Blossom Girls hits the Amazon store, it hits. You know, and so it's like it's got this own prescience. You know, it's got its own way of he's authoring his own success quite literally with this book, and not only that, but he's basically thumbing his nose in good nature. You know, he's having fun making fun of the game lit genre and the authors, and you know, and like he's making fun of everybody with this series, and it's great. It's great. Like I just love it, because it's speaking to our community.
And I would say that, you know, that's generally true of the indie world, I call it the indie revolution. I think that's true of the indie revolution in general, is that there's more creativity. Yes, there's more crap out there. There's more crap books. But that's because you're seeing people take chances that would never be able to get that chance in the traditional, you know, facet. And not what I'm hearing is that this is also true in audio.
I think so. I mean, when I worked for Podium Publishing for a brief period of time, and I'm still doing a few jobs here and there for them, just to finish off the series that I've already started with them. You know, I don't want to abandon the authors that I've already started working with, so I'm sticking to at least those, you know, finishing off those series. But I insisted on contacting the authors. You know, like I wanted to know more. I wanted to put. I always want to put. If I'm going to do something, I want to do it as right as possible. So I always insisted on talking to the authors, and it was, you know, it's kind of, they were like, you know, the publisher's like, all right, I guess, you know, that's the attitude that they have, and it's because of how the business of audiobooks has been, and you know, for the past 2 or 3 decades.
I mean, I think it's true of just about, you know, anything traditional. You know, where I live here in Georgia, I'm literally in the thick of things with what we call Yollywood now. I mean, when I was running 6 miles, you know, 2-3 times a week, my little loop around my house and neighborhood ran me through often some of the Walking Dead filming. And there was once where I came around the corner listening to my heavy metal running, and I look up and there's 6 zombies smoking and joking in the middle of the street. Um, and that's just cool. Like The Walking Dead is an indie kind of production in my mind because of the way that they kind of coalesced that thing. But the old adage in writing is that if you want to sell your book to Hollywood, you go to the fence, the perimeter fence around Hollywood with the Constantine wire and electrified, and you chuck that book over. They chuck a bag of money, and you go home.
Mm-hmm.
It's a complete disaster for the writer in there. In fact, the joke was, producers sitting around a table discussing the writer's book. What do you do when the writer knocks on the door?
What?
You pay him for the pizza. That's the joke in Hollywood. I mean, that's the attitude, right? So I think that the way that you're going, this is the wave of the future. That's why I call it a revolution. This is forever going to change, just like, Netflix and Breaking Bad probably changed the way people watch stuff. I think this is going to change the way we consume our entertainment, and for the better in the end. I mean, yes, like we said earlier, there's a lot of crap out there. But you got to weed through that stuff in order to find a different process, a better way of doing stuff. And that to me sounds like what Soundbooth Theater is really all about.
I think the reason that that Soundbooth Theater is even able to exist is because of that indie attitude, the indie access that we have. I'm operating out of my house, and I have a sound booth, and I have a decent computer that really I should be replacing soon. like it's that, and that's all I really need. And so, considering that's all I really need, that's all anyone who works for me really needs.
What drew you, Jeff, to the game lit RPG genre?
I think it was how much fun I had with Other Life Dreams. It was a combination of that and how successful it was. When that book came out, that was the most successful royalty share book I had ever produced. But it also connected with me on a level that most other books hadn't. And I think it was because I'm a gamer myself, number one. Number two, because it was asking questions about, I think, pop culture in ways that other books weren't. Like when it comes to like urban fantasy or sci-fi, it's much more allegorical because you're put into these settings that are completely alien from anything that we've ever experienced, right? But yes, when you put those alien experiences within the context of a video game, then it all makes sense to us because we've lived in video games. I know I've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours on Skyrim,
Yep.
just Skyrim. It's weird because it's an extra layer of separation as far as the world that you're writing, right? You have to have a character who lives in the real world, and then they go into the virtual world, and that virtual world was constructed by other people to look like another world that they already experienced. So there's all these weird degrees of separation that, oddly enough, in my opinion, acts as a lens that makes things more clear for us and as readers, as listeners, and almost removes the barriers that we have generally when we're listening or reading fiction. So
I can see that.
Other Life Dreams in particular, I think, was asking about the nature of artificial intelligence. I think that was, at least what I got out of it, the most important theme, most important question was, at what point is an artificial intelligence, even an artificial intelligence with no physical body, not even a robot, right? Just another entity that you interact with in another dimension, right? In a completely fabricated dimension. At what point are they more important to you than real life people?
That's definitely a big question in Gamelit.
I found that question fascinating, and I think that, and that's not always the question in Gamelit, but it's a relevant. Those questions are usually much more relevant to me than whatever allegorical thing that a fantasy or a sci-fi might ask, if they ask anything like that at all.
Well, the $1,000,000 question then I would have, Jeff, is since you are a gamer, would you ever upload your consciousness into a game?
I mean, I don't know. Give me a trial run, and if I like it, better in there, maybe. But I think that's another question that gets asked in game lit. Are we, what makes us who we are? If we're in a virtual world with a virtual body that's been completely fabricated by somebody else or by algorithms or whatever, if our personality, if we get to make decisions as that person, are we still that person?
We all kind of want to escape into that role for the game. And I think that that's the beautiful thing. And Ramon has said it many times. Ramon Mejia of the Lit RPG podcast has said this time and again, and I absolutely agree with him, that the success of this genre has really been from these people that don't have time in life. We're all busy people, especially yourself running a company. Definitely. Yeah. I think that's one of the appeals.
And if you're talking about saving time and being busy, that's one thing that audiobooks really does for people, is it allows them to experience the book without them having to change what they're doing. Like most people, right? You're a truck driver. If you, if you have a desk job, some kind, if you don't need to use your ears at your job, then you can be reading books and kind of like making better use of your time as you're working. I mean, even household chores, doing dishes, doing laundry.
It's funny because when I talked to Ramon on the podcast, he had mentioned that he had a job that was a kind of a menial job, and he was listening. This was way back, kind of really before audiobooks caught on that well, and he was using text-to-speech programs to listen to audiobooks. And I was like, man, that had to have been painful. Because you're listening, Siri wasn't even a thing, right? So there wasn't even a soothing voice. It was just this robotic, like hell, the creature from hell talking to you. I mean, and I was like, dude, that is dedication, man.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. There's no way. I couldn't listen to that for more than a minute.
I'd have to off myself.
Yeah.
I see a trend happening here with you, right? That is that you're a creative dude, but you also want to love what you're into.
I think that most authors feel that way. I think most artists in general are on that quest.
Yeah.
I think it requires a certain acceptance of reality in order to actually do that, right? So audiobooks. I was never passionate about audiobooks until I started making them.
Yeah.
Since I did my first audiobook well, and since I got paid well from it, I was like, man, if I figure out a way to be passionate about this, and because it is art, that will show through my performance, and it will take me further. So it's like there's like a give and take with reality that honestly most artists don't have, and I didn't have before this, right? But before, when I was just a musician, I was so pissed about not being successful because I love my music so much and I didn't understand why other people didn't. But what I had to realize was that is reality. Like, I can't expect people to love what I do. They have to just I either have to get lucky and write something and love something that I make that other people just happen to love as well, or I have to sit down and say, what do people love? Can I make that? And find a way to love it myself on that way. So artists who can do that, they're the ones that are successful. They're the ones that make it big. It's just when you're an artist starting out, when you're a starving artist and you're working a shit day job and making the music that you want, then and not making any success off of that music, you start to get bitter, and like what is this even for? It also makes me really appreciate the people who buy audiobooks more, because those people are the people who, like you said, are doing jobs that they don't like in order to make money. Why else would you need to escape? Like, why else would you need your mind to be somewhere else while you're performing a task? It's because the task is dull or menial or not meaningful to you. And but those tasks are important for keeping our society healthy, right? We need truck drivers. We need people working at restaurants. We need people manufacturing goods. But they take home a paycheck and they make the world a better place. And they spend some of that paycheck from doing the stuff that they hate on stuff that I create, and that makes me so incredibly grateful. And so, like, I still kind of can't believe where my life is now compared to 5 years ago.
When you talk about that, I call it the creative conundrum. It's true. I definitely see it in a lot of writing, but it's true of all artists, I think. And you talked about music, and I think that's absolutely true in music as well. Music production is that when you're starting out, getting that visibility requires you to maybe, juggle the market versus your creative desires. Come to a place where you can get yourself some visibility, and success is what breeds freedom.
Yeah,
And I think that's
absolutely
true. In my mind, I've always thought that creative success comes from 90% perseverance.
Mhm. Yeah,
And if you can persevere through that conundrum that I was just talking about, on the other side of that lies some freedom for you to enjoy what you want to do best.
yeah, absolutely.
And that's a tough place to be. And it sounds to me like, my friend, you have gotten there and you are definitely enjoying it because it shows these productions top notch.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I'm definitely having a ton of fun.
So, weird question. Where does this fear of string come from?
Okay, it comes from gigging and having to wrap up cables and like uh, get them in order and like put them away. Like I just dealing with cables, any kind of long stuff is just so it like ties my brain in knots. It's not really a fear, more like, oh god, I don't want to deal with that.
A dread.
A dread, yeah, dread. I suppose that's a type of fear.
Yes, most
But paper, same thing, man. I can't. Oh, dude, because paper reminds me of taxes or bills or something I don't want to sink my mind into. It's just rules and like it reminds me of a part of my life that I just don't want to be around. But it's super necessary. Taxes, oh my god. And it's just that dread, right? It's that dread that it's not difficult. It's just tedious and boring and something that I don't want to wrap my mind around, especially since I'm giving money to somebody I don't care about.
right. Yeah,
I feel like doesn't.
that's always a slog.
Yeah, like I mean, to be honest, with people that do work for me, I I get like I get a thrill out of writing checks to people who are doing, who are helping me, who are working with me, who are helping me, who are serving me in some way. Like that makes me feel good, paying people for their work, and because they're helping me succeed. And so the fact that I'm also giving back to them, that feels good. And giving to a government is like, what are you guys going to do with this again? Like I'm basically not behind 99% of everything the government's doing. So it's just I'm basically supporting terrible things. That's how I feel.
It's a battle to write that tax check. And speaking of battles, so let's get into one of my favorite parts of the podcast, which is called
Battle Who Wins.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here, Jeff, with a couple questions, and we'll see where you go with this. Now, the first thing I'm going to go with is an audiobook question. Battle Who Wins? Do you prefer
Female or male MCs?
I prefer male. So I think I just relate more. I'm able to relate a little bit easier to a male than a female.
I mean, when you're in an RPG, is it always male?
No. Nope.
You're playing females, right?
Sometimes.
Right, like what's better than a female thief?
Right.
Come
Right. Well, especially if it's third person. Whose ass do I want to watch?
on. Right.
Right.
Third person shooter. Yeah, you definitely want to have a female character.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's funny. All right.
Battle who wins? Token versus Martin. Battle of the RRs.
I'm gonna have to go with Martin on this one. I mean, they're both epic, right? But Martin's stuff is more human. Like, I feel like it's more real. The political intrigue is so much more interesting. The characters as individuals are more interesting and have more depth to them. And like, you know, with Tolkien, it's like, you know who are the good guys, you know who are the bad guys, and there's like a turncoat here and there, right? With Martin, it's like he can have you root for the bad guys and hate the good guys. Like some of the Starks, like they're so good, it's like, you idiot. You know, just get past this stupid thing, you know, like beat yourself up about it later. At least you'll be alive. And you'll be able to continue to do good, you know. So, but those are real traits that people have.
Yeah.
And with Tolkien, it's just, you know, everyone's archetypes.
Let me give it to you in a different format then.
Okay.
As if you were gonna, so this is you're doing the acting for an audiobook.
Battle who wins? Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones?
Game of Thrones, no question.
No question.
No question. Because again, like, okay, Lord of the Rings, I would have all these awesome like monsters to do voices for, and
right,
that's my favorite shit. That's my favorite shit to do as a performer. Exactly. Except, again, Martin just has more depth in his characters. There's more drama. The characters are more real, and even though the monsters and stuff are more fun, it's more gratifying to perform realistic characters.
I guess I didn't expect that, Jeff, because, you know, we were talking earlier about, you know, Cherry Blossom Girls being fun because it's kind of making fun of that stuff. And it doesn't really take itself too seriously. But what I'm hearing you say is if push comes to shove on the audiobook front, you'd rather something, not that I'm not saying that you don't prefer Cherry Blossom Girls. I know that's your favorite to date. But if you were to choose between these two mega series, you would go with the depth, the seriousness.
Yeah. From an artist's point of view, like, that's the bigger challenge. You know, like the monsters and stuff, man, like, I love doing that. It's fun, but it's not as much of a challenge because I just get to ham it up. You know, I just get to go as big as I want to. Whereas with Game of Thrones, there's going to be like these very intimate, heartbreaking moments that are going to be a real challenge for me to perform. Nuance is so much harder to do than scenery chewing.
All right, so you're hearing it first on GameReads. Challenge to you writers. Jeff wants you to challenge him.
Absolutely. Just to clarify, Cherry Blossom Girls is one of my favorite productions for this year. And like, personally as a performer, there wasn't much for me to do. So right. Like I play the bad guys and, you know, some bit parts along the way.
Here we go. Kind of in the same vein of what we've been talking about.
Battle who wins? Vikings versus dwarves.
I'm gonna go with dwarves.
Really?
Yeah. My first instinct was to say Vikings, just because they have, you know, they're bigger and they have probably more power, like as individuals. But dwarves are crafty, man. They build crazy machines, and, you know, they're gonna have that probably better tactics. They're probably gonna be smarter strategists, and yeah. So I'll go with dwarves on this one.
And they're just more fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're very similar as people. I think they're. I mean, lots of drinking, lots of fighting. You know, like they like both of those things quite a lot. So I think that personality-wise, they're very close. But Vikings are just a little bit lower end on the IQ scale.
All right. Final question. If you had to audio a series, a television series, which world would you rather audio?
Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Trek. And again, for the same reason. For the same reason, I choose Martin over Tolkien.
You think Star Trek is more serious and more intrigue than Star Wars?
100%. 100%. Because they're investigating interesting ideas, right? And they're like investigating, cultural differences, and they're out there like exploring and learning things. And I think that Star Wars, again, it's just like the most vanilla fantasy epic you can think of. It's all archetypes.
That makes sense. I mean, given the conversation we've had, I can definitely see that now. All right. So
your final battle, who wins?
You are chosen to be the audio actor for one of two captains.
Yeah, definitely Picard then.
No, I don't think you're gonna know where I'm going with this.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I will give you that. Captain Kirk.
Okay.
Or Captain Jack Sparrow.
Oh, Sparrow. Easy. Easy. So
much for the intrigue and seriousness.
What? No way. Captain Kirk has like none of that. Are you kidding me? Like okay, the first Star Trek series, like if there's any intrigue, it's very minimal. When I think of Star Trek, I think of Next Generation.
All right.
And even the first season of that is so stupid, right? Like I actually have this dream of one day producing a TV series that is a 1-to-1 spoof of the first season of Star Trek: The Next Generation, because it is so ridiculous. But then after the first season, it starts getting interesting. But yeah, I mean, like Captain Kirk is like, I don't know. I'd say the first season, the first iteration of Star Trek was more archetypal, and Captain Kirk is like the typical action hero type of character in comparison to like the rest of the captains that came up for the other iterations of Star Trek. But Captain Sparrow, I mean, he's got so much more depth, right? Because he's like a thief with a heart of gold, right? Maybe 10 karat gold, but it's like he still has some morals and he gives somewhat of a crap, right?
Yeah, I get where you're going.
He's drunk most of the time, right?
And that's important.
That is important and fun. He's definitely more clever, right? He's got more tools in his belt, and his accent.
That's the key right there. Jeff, you've been a great guest, man. I really appreciate you coming on, and we thank you, all the fans. Thank you for what you do with Soundbooth Theater and your entire crew there. You guys do an amazing job. Your audiobooks are top notch, and I really enjoyed talking to you today, dude.
Thank you, sir. You're a good interviewer. I had fun.
Yeah, definitely. We'll do it again sometime. Cheers.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Thanks for watching GameReads. Check out our other great interviews on YouTube and GameReads.net. Connect and chat with other fans on our GameReads Facebook page and YouTube channel, and support us on Patreon.com. Please subscribe now to our YouTube channel or iTunes podcast and never miss an episode. Cheers to legendary gear.